There's not one way, one road to success. It's different for every single person. You just have to find your way and you will get to where you're meant to be. It all works out. You just have to enjoy the ride, the good and the bad. Your mistakes are your biggest lessons in life and in your business and your career. So without those, you don't grow and learn.
If you can give them one piece of advice to be the best interior designer, to be the best entrepreneur, to be the best social media influencer, what would it be?
Find something that you absolutely love to do. It will never feel like work to you. How do you start your first business? What do you do? You need to...
Welcome back to 30 Years in 30 Minutes. I'm your host, Michael Oved, and we've got a great episode for you today. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you today's guest. Kara Woodhouse is a world-class interior designer and the founder of Kara Woodhouse Interiors. She's also a social media influencer with almost 900,000 followers on Instagram. Kara, it is such a pleasure to have you on with us today.
It is so nice to be here with you as well. Thank you for having me.
Kara, before we get into you and a bit about your career and all of your tremendous accomplishments, tell us more about you. Tell us more about your background, about your high school and college experience. How did you get into interior design?
So I had a very squiggly path to where I am today. I was a fine artist when I was younger, and I was deterred from going to fine art school, which was really my passion, doing sculpture. And I basically did the next thing that I guess back then in the 90s when I was going into college. I went into fashion. That's where I started, and I hated it completely. I went to FIT and basically quit half semester in because I just completely hated what I was studying. It was not my passion. And then thought I was going to go to the garment center and get a job, which I went on a million interviews, got offered a zillion jobs. My parents were definitely freaked out completely. And an aunt of mine kind of came to the rescue and said, kind of noticed in me, because she was also an artist, that I had a flair growing up designing. She's like, I remember you designing your room and helping your parents do their house and all this stuff. She's like, you should check out New York School of Interior Design. And basically magic happened. I walked through the door, I put together a portfolio, I was accepted, and I completely geeked out in college and found what I was meant to do, and the rest is history.
I think your journey to finding your passion, whether that's from fashion or fine arts or anything else, that's a journey that a lot of people in high school and in college go through. What advice would you give them as to how they can best find their passion and even find their passion earlier than you did?
I always say it's so hard unless you just truly know from a very, very early age that you love something, which I find to be a little rare. I think that nowadays, even in high school, you could do internships and work for different companies. I have two nieces who are older. One's 24, one's 21. And it's such a different world now. They have interned at a million different places trying to figure out their niche. One of them's in finance, so she actually knew. But my other niece, she is definitely business oriented and very creative. So she is testing out the waters and, getting internships for marketing and PR. She worked for Kith this summer doing styling. She's just finding every kind of niche and angle to figure out the parts of different businesses that she's interested in. So I highly recommend, playing around with those ideas. Even in high school, I've had interns come in high school and they get credit for it to see if this is something that they would enjoy. And every firm is different as far as interior design. There's commercial, there's residential, there's, large companies, small companies, and figuring out what suits you and what you're interested in. You could intern and figure out this is completely not what I want to do, or this is what I want to follow my dream and passion to do this.
So it's really just a trial and error game. Just try as much as you can. Use your high school and college years to do as much as you possibly could to narrow down what you're interested in.
I 100% think so. I think exposing yourself to different opportunities really kind of molds and shapes where you want to go in life, what you want to do.
And so when you had your first exposure to interior design when you graduated college, what was that like for you?
Well, I interned a lot when I was in college, and I did not have the greatest experiences, to be quite honest with you. It was very different then than it is today. There was a very old school mentality in the industry. People were really abusive to to interns. No, it was terrible. You know, starting out, you were treated really poorly. So I think it definitely helped develop my tough, thick skin that I have today, but also has taught me being a business owner and an employer of how I want to treat people and how I wish I was treated back when I started out. So the whole business has really changed and evolved over the years.
When you got your first job finally in interior design when you graduated college,
Yes.
was there anything that you learned then other than, developing thick skin, but any tangible
Yeah.
lessons that you learned there that you then took when you ended up starting your own interior design firm?
Of course. So, running this business, there's so many different ways that you can run an interior design business. I was fortunate enough to work for a top AD, that's Architectural Digest 100 firm. The firm is called Coleman and Kravis, and they had massive, large scope projects. They're still around today. They're a very reputable firm. And I really saw that it was a well-oiled machine from, their accounting system to being exposed to incredible vendors that I probably would not have been exposed to if I worked for a different kind of firm. I definitely gained a level of respect working for such a high-end, credible firm as well. So when I did go off on my own, people remembered I was a Coleman and Kravis girl. So yeah, I mean, taking notice of all the little details of how a business and a company is run is so important. I use the same accounting programs, and it's changed ever so slightly just because technology has changed so much. But I use the same kind of method that they used, and I worked for another firm besides them, but they were definitely you know, I think it played a huge role in how I run my business today.
I mean, that's really a tremendous thing that you use the same accounting practices today that you learned in your first job.
Yes.
And I think more than that, the name of the first company that you worked at stuck with you for the rest of your career. And in your case, that's a great thing because you were at a really prestigious firm. But when people are coming out of college and they're looking to explore, their first company, what they should work at, should they prioritize a company that they will learn a lot, or should they prioritize a company that has a big name and they might not be doing as much as they would be doing if they were at a smaller firm?
So I think that there's, upsides and downsides to both. The good thing is when you're starting out as well or finding internships or first jobs, I think that's why you go and you interview and you have to definitely delve in and kind of look into these firms, what their practices are, how many employees are there, what type of projects they work on, and really do your research. I think that's important to know, how these firms function and what you'll be gaining out of working for them, whether it's the prestigious name or really gaining the experience. And it could be both. In my experience, it was both for that firm that I work for. So yeah, I think you need to explore and look at all of those things.
But if you were to place more weight on one of them, either, a prestigious name or
I would probably go for the more prestigious firm because they're doing something right. If I were to do it again today, I would want to work for a big, well-known firm that has a lot of credibility. When I'm also interviewing to employ people and hire people, I definitely look at previous firms that they work for. If they worked at a CB2 in-house design role versus working at another designer's firm, one that I love and love their work as well, obviously that sticks out more to me.
And so when you were working in your first job, what was your day-to-day like?
My first job day to day, Pullman and Kravis, I really did everything. So I came on as a junior designer working underneath a project manager. And, I was doing bulk of the work. Day to day, you're basically pricing things out, you're shopping and putting together schemes for rooms, you're being exposed to going antiquing. We would shop at auction houses at Sotheby's and Christie's. It was such a mix and range. And I think that that is also something that's super important when you are interviewing for a position, that you're not just, working in a sample room or you're not being exposed to things. I think it's okay to speak up and ask, will you be included in the design process? Will you be at client meetings? Will you travel to the locations where these homes are? How involved is your role? You have to be clear about that, of what you're looking for and what you want to do and how much experience you want to gain.
And obviously, getting involved in all of those things would mean you're learning a lot on the job. And so, when you're in your first job, like you were, even when you're down the line at your second, third, or fourth jobs, how important is it to be persistent, to be pushy, to kind of go up to your bosses and say, look, I want to get involved. I want to do all of those things that you just mentioned?
So I was a little more fearful starting out, let's be honest. I think, I've definitely come out of my shell, obviously, so much more down the road. Also, seeing people who work for me, and I always admire and respect people who come to me and say, I want to do more. I want to learn, put me in the forefront of everything. I love when people have the guts to come forward and do that. Um, that's me. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I do respect that more for sure. And I did not do that when I started in the business, but in hindsight, I would definitely, if I could go back in time, I would definitely, speak up more, have a meeting with my employer and, ask for those things and show that I really wanted to learn and be supportive to them.
You obviously learned a lot from your first job. How did you know when it was time to leave?
I think I definitely left working for someone else a little prematurely. I only worked, and I worked for a couple of other firms, but probably it was like 3 years of a full time kind of position. I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to design my first project in Miami to do a beachfront, a waterfront property. And I kind of had the mentality of, just never say no, keep going, and, kind of fake it till you make it. And I learned so much, obviously, taking on my first project. I pulled in a business partner, thank God, at the time, so we could kind of work through this together. She did not have any experience having a firm of her own either. And we kind of just jumped headfirst into it. And it did come out beautiful. It was like such an incredible project. And we were like on a steadfast, crazy roll. Like word got out that we started this firm and we really grew very quickly, very fast. But there was a huge learning curve for sure on so many angles. Yeah.
And getting back to how the first opportunity came to you, it's a really unique thing to have that opportunity to begin with, to leave a firm that you're working at for 3 years and then go off and start your own thing. How did you get that initial opportunity?
Well, lucky enough, it was through a friend of mine, a close friend. It was his very close friend at the time. And he was purchasing this home and looking for a designer. And my very good friend, put me up for the position. We met with him and sold ourselves in, and the rest is history.
So if you were speaking, I mean, you are speaking with people who want to work for themselves, who are interested in interior design and want to work for themselves, how would you advise them to get that opportunity? How can they get that opportunity to get that, some might say big break, if they're working at a firm working for somebody else?
If you're looking to go off on your own and start a business, I think having experience first and foremost is a great thing to have under your belt, obviously. I had the foundation of school and working at this amazing firm. You're always learning. I say to this day that I still learn, things on different projects because every project's different. But my advice is Maybe get some projects going on your own, whether it's in your own home or a friend or a family member. Put together a portfolio so you have images of your work and your style. You could do 3D renderings now that look realistic of projects that you could put together and design and put it out there. Get on Instagram, go network, get out. Get the word out that this is what you're doing and display your work, so people know what's going on, what you're doing and could see and hopefully hire you.
And we'll get to the Instagram in a bit because you have a tremendous social media presence and you are so good at what you do. So I'm really excited to hear more about that a bit later. But I, I'm curious about when you first started your company, first started working for yourself. What were the initial challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
So I do a lot of mentoring for this as well. Like, how do you start your first business? What do you do? And there's just a very kind of short, quick to-do list with interior design. You need to have a great accounting program, which we use Studio Designer or Studio Webware. I've been using it for a million years. You definitely need to have a good lawyer to put together a design agreement or contract. You need to find a space to work out of, and you need to basically set up your business, your resale certificate so that you can open up accounts everywhere, get your social media up, and you're in business. It really is, it's a very easy thing to open and start a business, laying out the groundwork. Also a bookkeeper and an accountant, just like any other business. But those are the first steps of starting it. And then, there's tricks and things that you could do. Like I said, building a portfolio, creating a website for yourself, get out there and network. You could contact developers and builders. You could talk to real estate brokers, talk to friends and family who, are purchasing a home and want to give you your first break.
That's the list of what to do, but there's a lot of challenges along the way.
Yes.
What were some initial challenges that you faced?
I had some experience with architecture, but I did not have the experience, obviously, just because of time. I personally think it's all you kind of learn as you go. It's just time. I think that you have to build how good you are based off of experience and time in the field. So that is also a big thing that I think you need to do is really put your time in working for a good firm where you're gaining all of this experience. I just interviewed somebody who works on procurement, and she said, she's working for a big firm right now. And she said, my first year at this firm was my biggest learning experience that I ever had because it just threw me into everything. And she just learned so much being in this role and in this position, working for a really good company.
What was the hardest thing to learn on the job?
I think dealing with clients for me, I was a little intimidated in the beginning of my career with clients for some reason. I'm also a people pleaser in a way. So I would have some like issues that, like if they were giving me a little bit of a hard time, let's say, I didn't really push back as hard as I do now, like kind of standing your ground and not letting clients. And, in the beginning of your career, you're also taking on projects that with people that you might not see eye to eye with, or they could be a little problematic and personality wise, which I know in this field, a lot of people encounter that. So I think navigating different personalities and how you handle yourself. And, I tend to think that when you kind of give it back to people who are giving you a bit of a hard time, they tend to back down a bit. Um, that's a big learning lesson that I've learned along the way.
Are there any other learning lessons? Any other learning curves that you had? Steep learning curves?
If I make a mistake, which still can happen, it doesn't happen often, but if it does, I completely rectify it and take care of it because, the clients are trusting me and hiring me to design their home. So if I make a mistake similar to that, yes, I will replace it and take care of it because that's on me. And I stand behind everything that I do.
I mean, do you have any regrets of things that you didn't do when you were first starting off or when you were making a name for yourself in the industry?
I have zero regrets. I live my life with zero regrets. I think that your mistakes that you make are your biggest lessons in life and in your business and your career. So without those, you don't grow and learn. So I have no regrets at all. My journey to where I am today, it had twists and turns and all sorts of things. I've had several firms over the years. I definitely learned. I had a really large firm with 20 employees, in the beginning of my career. Then I went down to just having me and somebody else, to now finding the size that fits my life for balance and what I like to handle, and for my creative freedom, keeping it small. So that was a huge lesson along the way too, kind of finding where I feel like I'm thriving and comfortable with what type of projects I take on, leaving room to do product design and real estate. And, I just wrote my first book, which took a lot of time. So, yeah, I mean, you find so many lessons throughout so many things having a career, right? So,
And I completely agree with your take about regrets, by the way. It'd be one thing to say if there was an opportunity presented to you when you were younger that you didn't take, that would be a regret. But if you make the best decision with the options and knowledge that you have at that time, then there's truly nothing to regret.
yes.
And so maybe a better way of phrasing the question would be, knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently when you first
No.
started your company?
No.
Okay. That's great.
Definitely not.
Okay.
No. I take the good, the bad, and everything in between, because I am very happy with where I am today.
And so when did you decide to start your social media page?
So I started my social media page in 2016. I had just broken up with a business partner, and she was actually handling Instagram for our previous business, and I was completely hands off. I kind of had no clue and was not interested and was not my thing. And she was very focused on it. And then when we split up, I had to, rebuild a new business and create a brand. And I was all in and really saw the benefits of putting out there looks, designs, and feels of everything on my Instagram page. And I early on decided I didn't want to just share my work. I really wanted to share what inspired me, because I'm inspired by other designers. I'm inspired by incredible artisans and makers around the world. So, I, to this day, I share my work, I share products, and I share other designers' work.
I mean, it's not easy to get started on social media. It's certainly not easy to grow your social media account to 900,000 followers.
No, it's not. A lot of time and dedication. My biggest fear is to get hacked on Instagram, because I've seen so many people lose their Instagrams. I mean, the time that was spent, the years, hours, and time, it's been a labor, I guess, of love, because it's really opened so many doors for me, having such a large following. But yeah, I mean, if you want advice for how to grow social media, I mean, things have definitely changed since 2016. I know all the algorithms changed. They've definitely made it a lot harder for people to really grow quickly. But how I did it was, engaging. It's all about engaging in other designers and people on Instagram. It goes, it's a two-way street. It goes both ways. So doing that, and obviously your content has to be strong. If you're putting out not the best content, you're not going to get the attention and following. So yes, I always talk about how I base off any image that I post. It just gives me all the feels. If I get excited over seeing an image, it's going on, just eye catching.
So what goes into that content creation?
I handle all of my Instagram posts myself. So I've never had anybody post any of my work, and it's pretty much easy. Like I'm constantly researching. So I'm on Pinterest, I'm on Instagram, and I'm constantly kind of tagging inspiration, pieces that I love, designs that make my heart skip a beat. Like I have folders for probably years of pinned stuff. So I have so much content constantly and my own work, right? So every project that I'm working on or complete, it's on there.
And so, to someone who's just starting the process of content creation, obviously, like you said, it's super different now than it was in 2016. But what advice would you give them about what's the most important thing they need to do in order to find success on social media?
I think your work has to be really good. You need to get, if you're going into the interior design field or any kind of design related fields, it's all about visuals. So you need really good visuals, you need professional photography and things that are super eye catching. I find it in shapes and forms and color that just are attention grabbing. So I think imagery is number one, like what you're putting out there. What's your message? What's your style? And then hashtags, I have always done hashtags. I've done also podcasts on, Instagram and social media. Some people don't use hashtags, which is kind of mind blowing to me because I always use them. It's a way of kind of finding imagery of what you're looking for, and putting together good content, and honestly just being consistent. People are kind of expecting you after a while to see things on the daily. And also not overdoing it. So you could also overshare where people don't want you in their feed all the time. So it's finding that balance. I usually post once a day, and it's usually in the morning, and engaging with other people that, will engage back with you.
And I love what you said about the attention grabbing aspect of it. We actually just had on very big Instagram influencer, Mr. Thank You, on, who has 47 million followers. And he really says the same thing that you do about it has to be attention grabbing. He happens to do it with money, and says, money is the number one thing that's on everyone's mind. And so if you show them money in the first 10 seconds, they'll want to watch more. And so I think it's just super interesting to see how different niches grab their audience's attention.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it is fascinating. I'm fascinated with different industries too, and I get sucked into it myself on my social media. 100%. It's like you have to grab people's attention with so much out there in the world. The millions and millions of people out there, you have to grab their attention.
What's next for you? You've obviously had tremendous success in terms of your interior design company and in terms of your social media pages. What is next for you?
Obviously, first and foremost, I don't think I'll ever give up designing projects because that is my number one passion. But like I mentioned earlier, I have my first book coming out. I wanted to create a book too, and this is part of what I think I'm trying to incorporate more in my business and put out there, is that interior design for me is not just, a trend and just like an aesthetic. It really talks about connecting to your home. It's so much more emotional, and it's not just your eyesight looking at something visual. I talk about how you feel a space and how you live in a space and feel your home and the connection that you have to your home, and really customizing it to every individual's specific life and lifestyle. And I think that, it kind of goes also into the wellness sector, how you live in your home and how you feel. Colors can change your mood, scents can change your mood when it's really piquing every sense within a space, and it's an experience, right? So I really I think a lot of designers don't speak about that as much, and I really want to be on the forefront of really kind of taking that idea into a bigger level. Wellness is such a big thing right now. And I think having the two more connected is really my message that I want to put out there. When people walk through my spaces, like I always pay attention to things that they say and sounds that they make, and they express how they feel in the space, which is so it's so cool to evoke that out of somebody walking through one of my spaces that I design. So that's a big part of what I'm working on. And then I am also working on a real estate venture at the moment that will be launching in June. So I have a concept home out in the Hamptons, and it's a shoppable, rentable home. So I have a bunch of partners, incredible partners that with amazing product from all over the world, creating this experiential home that you can shop. If you can't book a stay, you could shop it online. I launched my website, my new website last summer, the end of last summer, selling, furniture, accessories, lighting, rugs, everything for the home, and really wanted it to be very curated. So it's kind of combining those two things together. And then you could also rent to stay at this home. So I'm excited. It's the first of many to come. I want to see them in different locations and having different vibes and feels to all of them. So I'm super excited to launch it.
So where can viewers get access to your book? What website should they go to?
It is everywhere. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any bookstore, just search. It's called It's a Mood. I actually have it here because I just got my first copy yesterday. My copy.
Wow. That's a nice design on the cover.
Yeah, I wanted it to be, cool for coffee table, but it is very informational. And the other thing that I'm really excited about that I think people are going to really love about it is I put a whole resource guide in the back and talking about senses. So, I have scents in there, like what they mean, crystals. I'm very into crystals. That goes also into like the wellness sector, plants and foliage, paint. And then I have a whole list of vendors of my go-tos, like an inside scoop from, wallpaper, fabric, rug, you name it. Anything that goes into design, lighting, everything, it is all there to share. I'm a big sharer. I don't like to keep things kind of closed in and secretive. I like to share with everyone because it's important to me. It's supporting my industry.
We took a step forward and now taking a little bit of a step back. You're speaking to people, like I said, who are interested in what you do. So based on all of your successes, your failures, everything, if you can give them one piece of advice to be the best interior designer, to be the best entrepreneur, to be the best social media influencer, what would it be?
You have to be passionate. I think that's like, I tell my kids this: find something that you absolutely love to do, and it will never feel like work to you. I work every day and it never feels like a burden or work to me ever. All the things included, from social media to design to the business side of it, all of it, it is literally fun for me, every bit of it. And I think that's why I'm just constantly trying to do more. And I almost like I can't keep up with myself. But it's just because I love it so much. And when I am passionate about something, like nothing can hold me back. I'm just full force in. So I think, that comes down to passion, being passionate and really, truly loving what you're doing.
And like you said before, it's all about trial and error.
100%. I think you need that to grow, just in general. I think that, again, obviously when you have successes and wins in things, it makes you feel so good. And you're like, I'm doing this again and again, and you're repeating it. And the same thing, it's like the failures. It's like, and sometimes you make the same mistakes over and over again until you finally learn that lesson. And I've done that as well, where like you think you're being smart and think you learn your lesson. And I didn't. I had to go through a lot more mistakes of doing very similar things over and over again until I learned my lesson. There's not one way, one road to success. And it's different for every single person. You just have to find your way, and your journey is your journey and my journey is my journey, but you will get to where you're meant to be. It all works out. So you just have to enjoy the ride, the good and the bad, and appreciate the good and the bad. I do appreciate the bad just as much as the good. I do.
But it's important not to have regrets, exactly like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
And so onto the rapid fire questions. What book do you
So,
recommend? Other than your book, if you
yeah.
asked me what book I would recommend your book, which everyone should pre-order from Amazon now. But
Yeah.
other than your book,
So my favorite book, which really has nothing to do with interior design, it is called How to Be a Badass series. And it basically just teaches you to let go of things that are holding you back and how to move forward. And
that's important. What is the key to your success?
I think the key to my success is staying focused. I think you have to be very focused. I think it's really important to have your top 3 to 5 things that you want to happen in your life. And this is part of my manifestation in a way, but I think it helps keep you focused and grounded on everything that you want to achieve. So I think that making a list and how you're going to get there and working on it every day until you get to where you want to be. I think that is definitely some advice, big advice that I give to people, and just have a positive mind. And I kind of have the mindset of things can happen to you on the daily, that could kind of put you in a bad mood or set you back. Things aren't going your way. And I think you just have to let those things kind of roll off you. Don't let them affect you so deeply, and just kind of press on, move on, and don't let anything stop you. I feel like there's so many lessons that we learn day to day, and take them as lessons, but move on, move forward, have a really positive mindset. And I think you'll get to great places in your career, no matter what your career is.
What is a quote that you live by?
I always say, never take no for an answer.
I love that. People don't follow that enough. It's just, if you are persistent, if you keep at it, someone will eventually say yes.
Yes. I don't believe in accepting the first no. Like, I will find any way in. I'll find my way in to just turn that no into a yes. And I've done it many, many times.
And that explains why you're so successful. What is your favorite home style?
I don't really have a particular one style, but I would say things that I really love and that you could see currently, and it's been for many years, I really do. I love very soft curved kind of movement in spaces. So whether it could be an arch doorway to a rounded light, I love curvaceous things. And I would say that I'm definitely more contemporary modern. I would say that's because that's what I am now, right? It's contemporary for now, where we are in time. So that is, I guess, my style.
And our last question is, what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
I think all the advice that I just said now that, I've learned over the years is don't let things get you down. Stay positive, stay focused, and really, I think staying positive, being around positive people. I'm so into people's energy and vibes, like if someone is just, everything out of their mouth is negative, it brings you down. And just switch it, put a smile on your face, be happy, and try to find the good and positive in everything and everyone.
Attitude is altitude.
Yeah, it is. I think seeing the good in things is definitely important.
Well, Kara, this is so much fun. You have such a wonderful way of articulating your accomplishments in such an eloquent way, really. So thank you so much for coming on. It is a true honor to have you. Thank you.
Same. Thank you so much. This is so fun. And again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to 30 Years in 30 Minutes. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments if there's anyone else you want to hear from.